So, hello everybody. We're on the Irish Influence again. We're talking about not St. Patrick's Day. We're talking about St. Patrick's Festival, and I'll explain that in a minute. But I do think it's important that we put some shape on this kind of weird and wonderful event that's now just 4 months away. Obviously, we're talking about a crazy Welshman, potentially Irishman from the 5th century. Died literally when he was 120 years old. And on the 17th of March every year, we celebrate the day he died. But the bizarre thing about, if those of you who've ever visited Downpatrick, where St. Patrick is buried and they have a kind of heritage centre there, it doesn't get very busy because in a way that people aren't interested in the man himself. It's his day that has become the sort of big global story. I was looking at some figures the other week in America, because we are talking to America. 13 million pints of Guinness are drank every St. Patrick's Day. Not solely by the 39 million people who claim Irish heritage in the US, but by everybody. And they spend a stunning $5.9 billion each year on St. Patrick's Day. Put it down another way, that's $40 per American on St. Patrick's Day. 60% of all Americans celebrate the day in some way. 83% of them claim they wear green. And now it's the biggest spending day in the US after Thanksgiving and Super Bowl Sunday. So, this strange 5th century gentleman has become a global story. The one thing I also looked at is the bizarre list. There's always these kind of online top tens, and the best or the most attended St. Patrick's Day is always a very contested territory. The shortest one isn't. The shortest one belongs to Dripsey County Cork, which is 25 yards long. But the biggest are always the top three of New York. I apologize if I offend anybody from New York here. Having watched 72 parades in my life when I was working on this, New York's parade is probably the most boring in the world. Apologies, everybody. Allegedly followed by London, which I don't get. And then number 3, which is by far the most important, is the parade and the whole festival in Dublin. So on that basis, we're going to talk to Susan Kirby, who's the CEO of the St. Patrick's Festival. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you, Mike. Lovely to be here.
So do you want to explain, Susan, for those of people who aren't in Ireland and might not be familiar, just what is the festival? Because it's much more than just a parade.
It's much more than just a parade, and it's much more than just a day. Obviously, the entire thing pivots around the 17th, and the 17th is the iconic moment within it, and the big. We're known for doing big figurehead events. So if anybody's not familiar with it, Dublin is the capital city of Ireland. We close it down effectively, actually overnight, and then take it over for the entire day, the following day, to run north side to south side across the river with a huge spectacle of, and how Dublin differs very much so from New York would be, we have all those ceremonial aspects and, kind of our guests who come and a limited number of walkers. Everybody's pretty much performing in some way. We have our huge US bands and bands from all over the world that come in and celebrate with us. But we have pageants, which is amazing, beautiful, custom-made, commissioned street theatre that really brings the whole thing to life. We've got about 3,000 people participating in the actual physical parade. It's broadcast, it's streamed all over the world. It's obviously growing every single year in terms of the impact and the amplification of it. Hundreds of thousands of people come in, and it's on their bucket list to come and party with us and attend with us. Our president presides over the whole affair. And it's a really wonderful, proud moment to kind of close down the streets, perform in probably what's one of the most epically democratic ways to access the arts or celebrate the arts or give the arts. Prince or pauper, you stand shoulder to shoulder on the street, usually quite cold, let's be honest. So they're a committed audience, and they really cheer one another on, and it's a hugely uplifting, proud moment, and we welcome in kind of media from all over the world. It's one of the largest events in the world in that sense. We've over 500,000 people standing on the streets of Dublin. We've 3,000 people performing. We've media crews from all over the world. It's an exceptional, kind of unprecedented moment to gather and and celebrate everything that's the best of Irish. So um, it's both a kind of an invitation. It's fundamentally an Irish celebration, but it's also an invitation to the world. Anybody who either claims Irishness or just thought that they'd aspire to be Irish on the day, they're welcome. So that's day one, if you will, or one of the days. And then the wider program is actually and has grown very substantially into over a week now of other major events happening all over the city, nationwide events and cultural events. We take over beautiful spaces with the most gorgeous performances, everything from spoken word to music to literature, which is, I think we all agree is a celebration of Ireland.
And then obviously, Susan, I mean, you talk there about Irishness. I mean, the one thing again, having been around the world when I was writing about St. Patrick's Day, outside of Ireland, most parades are kind of avowedly Irish. Everybody's in green. It's all the hats. It's the shamrocks. It's very, very obviously here is Ireland. Whereas the festival theme each year changes. And when I look at the parade, it's okay. Everybody around the streets is in the green hats, and that looks it. But the actual parade isn't that kind of paddywhackery kind of kiss me, I'm Irish type Irishness. It's something very different. It's telling a very different story. So, I mean, how each year do you choose those themes? And as it were, because you're in one of the people in charge, what are you trying to put on the streets to speak to an Irishness?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's I think first of all, Ireland has a really rich tradition of street theatre and performance. So we're very lucky in that we have a really vibrant scene in terms of street and a really long pedigree of kind of showmanship and it's an area I'm very passionate about as well, because as I said, it's the ultimate in the democratic arts. And in my mind, it's also, I've always thought it was like a gateway to the wider arts. You may feel comfortable going into an opera house or a theatre if you've had an artistic experience on the street. The thematics that we choose, they're usually uplifting. They're broad enough that if I was a young contemporary spoken word artist, I could respond to it. Or if I was a theatre company, I could respond to it. But they also allow, we're quite, curatorially, we allow the artists to respond to the theme. And it would be wrong to direct them or over direct them. And that's where actually we found the real richness of the response artistically. So you will see everything there from kind of myths and legends and iconic locations in Ireland to stories to folklore to also then more contemporary things, which might be, we did a brilliant project with DIT, who they were at the time, who have a really strong pedigree in the space of design. And they responded completely differently to that kind of, contemporary or that kind of folklore look or that Celtic look. And it represented a modern Ireland. Ireland is, has its own equivalent of Silicon Valley. It's punching above its weight on an international stage. So that needs to be reflected as well. Just on your earlier points about around the world, what we have found is that there is a real appetite, and particularly, obviously, we have a huge connection into the US. There's a huge appetite for a broader potential celebration in, all over the world of Ireland at the time of. And I think the embassies do a great job of, exploring almost like a cultural program at the time of the festival. But I've been in Sydney, I've been in America, I've been in France and in Asia, and there's a real appetite to go I think because in a lot of cases there's a younger diaspora, that they're keen to they want to value the heritage, but they want the contemporary represented as well. So we try to respond to that. We try to capture that, and I hope we do. We do it justice, because it's a pretty broad brief. But at the same time as well, we're not snobbish about entertainment and fun and gathering, and the idea that, and geez, even more these days, like actually the simplicity of being able to get together in a group and cheer another group of people doing something, performing and entertaining you, is like mind-blowingly exciting right now. We're on a complete lockdown, so this is my world. So we're not snobbish about the concept of entertainment and fun and uplifting. And one of my favorite moments always on parade day, having staged this multi-million pound epic undertaking, is usually these really beautiful, profound, intimate moments. Can be with like a guard, which is a policeman or woman, doing a selfie with somebody in the crowd, and the pair of them doing a hug. It brings people together, and we really cherish that and celebrate that.
And obviously, I mean, one thing, I've talked about this, you go around the world, or you used to, looking at similar events, but also talking to people who organize other kind of what I can call mega events around the world, mega festivals, national days, whatever it may be. In that context of watching and listening, and then you come back each year and have to start on the 18th of March thinking about the next year, and again putting 500,000 people on the street and the entertainers, and building a week's program, and building in whatever it is, the tourist numbers a couple of years ago, 1 million visits for the 3 days either side of the festival in terms of bed nights, and the millions that makes for the States. Do you still walk away, or do you still sit there and think, okay, actually St. Patrick's Day is different? All these other events, be they sporting, be they cultural, they're fine, they have similar dynamics, but actually the idea of a national day, which has gone global, there is something different about the 17th of March compared to all these other things.
It's unprecedented. I've also spoken, interestingly, kind of the diplomatic effort. So the economic diplomacy that happens at the time of the festival is actually bizarrely outward facing, and to me that makes complete sense. But what happens is that the converse also happens. So Irish diplomats and politicians, etc., it's well known that they travel all over the world at the time of. But what also happens is that there's the equivalent diplomatic here. So sitting on the stand on the day or around the time of the day will be everyone from the US ambassador to the ambassador of India, etc., 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 all sitting together. And it's powerful. And then it's powerful to think that in their countries, Seoul in Korea has this incredible parade. There are amazing parades all over the US. And then there are, like in Sydney, in Perth, in Brisbane, there's these incredible festivals as well. They've grown into festivals too. So that is utterly unique. Like I've spoken to the French about Bastille Day. I've spoken to the diplomatic corps here, who would be from other countries, will always reflect that if they owned it, they would, they'd give their right arm to own it, frankly. And it is a priceless national asset, I believe. I'm slightly biased, obviously, but a priceless national asset of the country, which I would like to see, developed and nurtured and treated in that way. And I believe it's on a great journey in that sense. So yes, I do think it's different because of the fact, the adoption of it, and the fact that other we haven't controlled necessarily. A lot of the response to it is very organic. and has come about, and could be a GAA club in Argentina who have set up their parade, or set up their festival. That's magic. That's just really, it's really powerful. So I think that is very much the Irish influence. It's that gathering of Irish people who go, well, we're going to be celebrating it, so let's build and build and build on it.